Hello everyone, I am Tyler Edlin with Adam Duff here, and this is the Brush Sauce Theater contest for the Dark Conjurer illustration. Contest forum critique session. Now, just to note, this is when we critique these are just from our two perspectives, and it's not a be-all, end-all, and so take any information we provide with a grain of salt, and we will try our best to use our experience to improve these images and make suggestions. I would like to just quickly add in for a moment, if we'd love and appreciate your feedback on how these are set up and being run. Are these just way too long for everybody, or would you prefer them shorter, like, limit 5 minutes per piece, or, just let us know how you guys feel, and, of course, what you would like to see for future contests, and we'll take everything into consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, everybody. Pleasure to see you again, and thank you very much, Tyler, for inviting me.
Awesome. So, it'd be good to know too, for anyone who was watching that didn't enter, this contest was going to pretty much focus on an illustration, and we were looking for kind of like narrative and how well it reads, and that kind of general, if it sticks kind of to the theme. So
yeah, absolutely.
basically that'll be about it.
And a little note here too is that this is actually, usually it's up to date. It's been Tyler's screen that we've been looking at, but today Tyler said he gave me the honor of saying, "Would you like to share your screen?" And I'm like, "But I don't have a Mac. I work on a PC. You got everything's pretty on your computer." And I was like, "Yeah, that's cool. Don't worry about it." So so we have it on my screen today. So I'm going to be the one flipping around if need be.
Yeah, maybe you can make a couple adjustments on the images where necessary. They're quick.
All right, so we'll start
with Antoine's piece.
Antoine. All right. Here we go. So,
what are your first thoughts on this? I'm liking the mood a lot.
Yeah.
And I like this one has a clear kind of sense of narrative to it too, which is what we were also looking for.
It is. It's like for me, I found that I think you nailed it in one word. I think the mood of this piece is probably in terms of mood, this is the one that really grabbed me the first. It's very evocative, and those piercing dark kind of this. What I love about this is the fact that it's. I always love people who do dark creatures in gentle light. The kind of contrast between.
That's an awesome way of saying it. And that's kind of something you have a lot of experience in yourself. Like in image making in terms of everything is all about contrast, and it's those subtle types of sub contrasts that really make powerful images.
Well, it's the narrative. That's a very powerful. It's kind of taking you away from what's expected, right? This kind of macabre, kind of like lumpy beast, something that normally would scare the crap out of a little girl in a room, but she loves him, and her contact with this beast shows you that he's actually gentle. He's not he's like the Quasimodo of nightmares,
Yes.
He's got a gentle soul. So I'm very touched by this piece, very much so.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones I saw too and was drawn to as well, and I love and I think on a technical standpoint the values work well. It clearly reads, especially I think a lot of people kind of trip over that part of if they're going to make a dark or a moody scene, they go too heavy on the dark, on the dark values, and it gets really hard to read. But this is clearly legible, and I think the composition works as well.
Dead on. I mean, Antoine could have very easily, because this is a dark kind of nightmarish type of scene, could have gone all black, and that, in my opinion, would have ruined this piece. The fact that there's a softness, like there's a low value range. You don't have this striking black-white contrast all over the place. It's actually what gives it its atmospheric mood. It's what makes me feel like I'm in an attic. The fact that there's that slanted ceiling makes me think I'm in an attic or something like that. It softens the lighting. It softens the narrative as well. So, yeah, no doubt about it.
Anything that you'd like to add that this artist could do to improve this piece?
Well, since we're on the topic of value, and I see a very classical feel to the value range. Like if I was to actually put this in the category of like if I was to set all of these pieces next to each other and label them, which I generally don't like to do, right? But if I was actually to categorize these pieces, the feel of this is a very classical feel, namely because we have this, this soft, moody feel to it with a dark background to this pale character.
Yeah, and the subject, the subject matter of the, the character and the creature is almost vignetted by, the angle of the roof in the back, the window, and then all the the layout of the foreground items is
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. Now, actually, since we're on that topic, I'm going to show you a little something here that it could compare to, something that could inspire this very piece of artwork, if I can actually find it. I don't want to lose myself live on camera.
Put it over and put it on the screen.
Awesome. All right.
That'll work.
Okay, so yeah, when I look at this piece, the narrative, okay, although there is a demonic narrative, we have this, some could be a fetus. I'm not quite sure. Maybe a rabbit. Actually, it looks like a rabbit leg or something like that. There's definitely a dark side to it. There's the demonic side to it. Now, that puts her, this character of the female, this little, cadaver of some animal, puts her in the category of being evil. Okay? At first glance, when you look at this, I see touching, right? I see touching, and there's kind of like this misunderstood beast, and she's kind of there to say, I think you're beautiful type of thing, which is a very touching moment. When in fact, if you look at this little element down here, I'm thinking she's actually not that nice. She's actually one conjuring a malevolent beast, right?
Yeah.
Which might be the intention, right? So there's a bit of a mind twist going on here. I'm not exactly sure what to expect of her. Now, the reason of this is because of the way she's dressed. The way she's dressed.
Yeah, she is clearly like in white, which is normally associated with somebody that's pure and that's good. And what is she hiding? Behind that kind of exterior of her. It just shows multiple levels of character development.
Yeah. And as we can see, as a result of it, there are actually a few narrative elements of this piece that we did not catch at first glance. Neither one of us caught this. And that is, at closer glance, she ain't so nice, all right? For instance, look at her hands. She's got bloody hands, right? So she is, in fact, the one that just skinned this rabbit with her bare hands, right? So that's a bit naughty. Last time I checked, I don't. My 5-year-old daughter. Last time I checked, I don't remember her ripping the skin off of a live rabbit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
That's a big deal in terms of narrative. So if we're looking at this in terms of storytelling, we're going to need to do a few things with this piece in order to sell that story effectively, so that our audience actually can feel they can feel that kind of that confusion between her very pure superficial exterior versus the fact that she's actually the demon in this painting, right? She's the one who actually conjured this nasty creature, right? Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is push that narrative. We want to push those extremes so we can identify with the fact that she has a superficial, pure exterior, and at the same time is quite demonic. So what I would do is, if we look at this painting in terms of black and white, okay, we can see from a distance that the elements that really jump out at us in terms of narrative is his back, because the light is, their highest point of contrast is up here, right? We have the window hitting off of his back. And we have a high point of contrast here with her, the dark against light, right? And this area of the painting is where all of that storytelling is happening. Okay. However, from a distance, if we look at it from a distance, if we think in terms of contrast and what actually grabbed our attention first, it's actually his back.
Yeah,
right?
The window.
And you got to ask yourself, the window, and you got to ask yourself, is the window a part of the story? Is that an actual narrative part of the story? And if it's not, you have to make a decision. You're going to have to push the contrast range, the value range, a little bit more where you want the story to be told, and tone it down where you don't. It doesn't mean you have to kill the light, but you have to tone it down so it doesn't overpower the main story.
Yeah, lowering the contrast or the the lightness of it, just a tad might help with that.
Yeah. So like if we're looking at this here, for instance, if I do an adjustment, let's just unlock it so that I can add a little adjustment to it. So if I go like, for instance, let's say levels. Okay, that way I can control the high and low values. Let's take the whites away. Let's start to detract a few of these whites. Okay. And then I'm going to paint them out. So let me see, I'll just find a soft airbrush here. And I'm just going to take out some of these lights if it's actually going to work. Are you going to cooperate with me?
Looks like it's working.
Let's see it before and after. Okay, we're toning down. Now we still have the light. You can still sense that light, right?
Yeah, it's still as ever present in terms of its narrative and in mood in the scene, but toned down, and I think it definitely helps draw your eye to that character first.
Yeah. Okay. So good. Okay. So since we've done that, now let's do another levels adjustment here, and we're going to boost the whites. Okay. And the boosted whites are going to be on this girl because we want to sell her purity. Now, in order for her to stand out, in order for her to jump, we're going to have to make a decision in terms of the lights in this scene, right? So we have the only other indication of the light that we've got might be the light that we have here on the floor, and maybe that's coming in through a doorway. Not sure. Okay. We also have candles that have been blown out, so they're not a source of light. So I'm thinking, if I want my audience to catch her, okay, if I want people to catch her attention and at the same time sell her quote unquote superficial purity, right, which is a very powerful narrative. It's kind of like that, if I reflect that on my own life, if I can get personally, if I think of a random named ex-girlfriend of mine, right, that shall remain unnamed, somebody who on the exterior was very pure and beautiful and demure and soft, but deep down inside was an evil, psychotic witch who broke my heart, and I'll never get her back again. Oh, sorry, I went off on a tangent there. It's that whole illusion of purity when in fact it's very demonic. Now, of course, I'm not relating it to anybody I know specifically, but just to give you an exaggerated idea of like somebody who plays with your head, then I would sell that purity. I would push that purity and maybe have some light get off of her. So that
you could do really like subtle value differences, and if that can translate to the color as well, as like depicting that kind of cool down, or that white, but in several subtle different tones of color can really, if you were going to technically get back into that.
Just sit here and hitting off some light. Now from a distance, now she really pops. Now she's the center of attention, because if I think in terms of value range, I've taken this value range lower and I've boosted this value range up. And furthermore, if you don't want to kill that atmospheric feeling, that smoky atmospheric feeling, then instead of just going black and white everywhere, we can just use that contrast in an area where need be, which would be like, for instance, if I grab another levels adjustment here and I add blacks, okay, I'm going to attract it. Oops, reverse that. And here, just to help push those whites, I push the blacks at the same time in that same area around where that focal area is, as such, showing a little bit of depth between the two of them and helping to sell that narrative and define some of these shapes. I've pushed the white and the dark at the same time. Now if I go like this and just take a little airbrush, take a little bit of this out.
Soften it up. There you go.
Look how I've just pushed this story. Now that when we look at it painting, even if we look at it like that, I know where my eyes got to go first.
Do you want to take 1 second and group, those 3 level adjustments I did in one folder so you could turn it on and off to show the difference?
Sure, absolutely. Let's group them up. Let's label them, because I'm a teacher, so I'm like, you have to label them. I like being that dorky teacher that follows the rules. No, I don't actually. Fuck rules. Excuse my French. So it's like, he just said a bad word. All right. So you see here, I push this narrative through the use of contrast. I push her purity through a high range of contrast between the two of them, and I've helped define their expressions at the same time, that one-on-one connection. So if you go before,
that
can you see that in thumbnail, or is that too small for you?
No, I can see it.
All right, let's do this so you can see a little bit clearer. Okay, before and after. Okay. Now, although I've maintained this smoky feel throughout, my eyes have a full range of value in this painting, and that's what you need to keep it stimulating and interesting to look at. Now, if we actually step outside of this and put this painting in the context of all of the other ones, okay? Not to compare, because every artist is themselves, but it's a very good example to see artwork in the context of everybody else's artwork. Because remember, if I'm, for instance, like when I was doing my search, I did the search for Bouguereau, for the artist William Bouguereau, okay?
Mm-hmm.
When we look at this page of art, okay, there's certain pieces of artwork that are going to grab our attention first and other ones that are not. And I don't know about you, but my eye gravitated towards this one, gravitated towards this one, gravitated towards this one down here. Why
I'm
is that?
I'm having like a sensory overload right now.
Yeah, I know. He's
Like, whoa.
produced a few pieces of artwork, right?
Yeah.
But as you can see here, the ones that grabbed me first are the ones that had a high value range. Lights against darks, lights against darks, stark lights against darks, okay? The ones that you don't notice are perhaps this girl here. It's muted, maybe.
Yeah, the softer images.
The softer, the value range is low.
Like that one is a lovely painting, but in terms of its design, it's just has a softer range of values.
Exactly. But the intention behind the artwork in this painting was for him, he used a soft value range because he wanted to establish a soft story.
Yeah, and that's a question that every artist or illustrator should ask themselves before they begin even painting is, what is the function of this moment within the story?
Exactly. Right?
And,
so step outside of that and look at this. Is this story a happy story, a tender moment, or is it not? And if we look at the actual narrative, it's actually not, right? So we want to be able, there has to be a hint in there to say this isn't a gentle story. So we need that contrast range, that a bit of a dynamic there to show some visual contrast, some impact. If it's all soft, then it's a soft painting, right? And that's why both of us looked at it and said, oh, that's a very nice tender moment. It wasn't. Yeah. We were deceived, right?
We were.
And it was the value that deceived us. Now, that being said, once you do that, and you come in and you want to sell that narrative that she's the summoner and she's a very, very, very bad woman. Very bad. I'm going to come in and I'm going to throw in that, I'm going to want that blood to really show on her hands. Now, that's a bit much here. So let's just set, let's say color or something like that, or overlay.
Overlay will usually get the job done.
There you go. See, and now, and you connect that blood in her hands to the blood on this rabbit down here, and maybe a little streak of blood that connects the two. Now we can see what's really going on in this picture, right? We can actually see the story that's going on. See, so before and after. And that's my 2 cents.
All right, yeah. So it's that. I think overall we both agree that it's a really well crafted piece.
Yeah. It's just a question of selling the narrative and having that full value range for the sake of it holding up, when it's standing up against other artworks. Because as we see here, the artworks that we're going to notice first are the ones that have a higher dynamic range in terms of contrast, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, we'll do number 2.
All right.
Number
2. All right. All right, there's a lot going on in this painting here.
Yes, there is.
All right, very nice piece of artwork here. And very cool in terms of just design. Some kind of elements in here that I never would have even imagined, like these kind of like branches off the helm that I think is a really cool idea.
Yes.
This beast in the back that has kind of a fur collar around his shoulder range, which is really nice too. And a very nice sense of depth in this piece as well.
Yeah, like we can clearly see that this character here is a dark character. He's got his intent. He's definitely harnessing whatever in his hand to summon this beast.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think? When you look at this? If you were to, what's the first thing you would do if now that we kind of have an understanding of the story? Where would you go in terms of?
I think as it is, I think the composition works in terms of the major elements and how they're placed.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking in terms of storytelling. Why is that character in that pose? Like, I'm thinking if I'm this character and I'm trying to harness all this dark energy or whatever it is, bringing up this grand grave walker thing. He's kind of like apprehensively turning. Well, I don't know. He's turning toward us, but there's a twist, and he's just kind of casually holding his hand out. Like you think there'd be a grand sense of energy, or kind of like a music conductor is really using his full body language to gather, make all the musical instruments and, the players go in sync and everything. And you think that this type of character might be doing that type of thing to,
Yeah.
to muster up the energy to summon such a grand beast.
He is the conjurer, right?
Yeah, that's what I assume.
So
I mean, what I was trying to say in a simple way is, it's like he seems just very casual about it. He's like, yeah, whatever, this is just a thing.
What do you think it is that's making him look casual? I'm thinking in terms of body language. I want to see what your take on this is, because I know you always say cool stuff when I ask you this question. So, what would you say is what is his body language telling you that's might be throwing you off?
Just how he's. I think he would be more. He'd either be. It's too middle of the road all around for me. Like, he's either like kind of walking away. You see, he's kind of grabbing a sword too, in the lower. But in his other hands, I was like, is he summoning to kill this? Is he summoning it to work for him? And there's a lot of questions you can ask, which isn't a bad thing. But it's like, I'm not getting sold on the concept of him doing that in 100% in either way, because I think he'd either be facing, and we'd see more of a back view of him,
which more I think, engaged, yeah,
and he would be kind of more in silhouette. I mean, he's reading now because of the kind of the darkness behind him and the light. I mean, he's reading, but I think of more of him doing this in terms of the moment of the storytelling. He would be more kind of like in silhouette, or maybe more subtle lighting on, and more backlit entirely with the orange lit would look really fantastic. And you'd see him kind of be putting all his energy or focus into summoning this, instead of kind of like half putting it there. Or, maybe he, but that's what I'm saying, 50-50 could go the other way. Did he already summon him and now he's just scared? Like, what did I do? Is he running toward us? This pose is just not it's not selling me on either of those ideas.
If you look in terms of body language, if you're looking in terms of what his body is actually telling you, okay, then, like you said, he's facing away from the beast. So if he's facing away from it, chances are the human brain's going to interpret this as he's running away from him, right? He's ready to take off.
Yeah.
But in fact, what I'm thinking, because his hand is outstretched and he's got that glow in his hand, what I believe the artist, what's his name here? Marta. What Marta's goal was what her intention was to say, this armored human creature is summoning that huge beast off in the background, right?
Yeah.
So this creature in the foreground is responsible for the fact that big beast exists. If that's the case, then look what her hand is telling. Look what her body and hand is telling the audience. For starters, the body's facing away, so the body's facing the direction to get out of there, but peeking over the shoulders. So that's a very clear indication that, looking back to say, oh shit, here he comes, right?
Yeah.
And the hand is outstretched, facing upwards. Okay, do that yourself, and see, if we were actually standing face to face, which I would love, but unfortunately you're in Cape Cod and I'm in Montreal, right?
Yeah, we got a bit of a barrier.
If you made that gesture to me, Tyler, what would you be doing if you had your palm facing up towards me? What is that? What are you suggesting?
I think in terms of that regard, the narrative that I get from the pose as is that he might be luring the beast.
Luring or offering, right?
Yeah.
Like if you walk into a restaurant and there's a host or a hostess at the front, and she says, "Oh, please come in." What does she do with her hand? Does she come in and point with her finger? Sit there. Does she point? Does she have her hand facing downwards, or does she have her hand facing upwards? Generally, she'll point with her hand up to the ceiling, right? Mm-hmm. It's a way of offering. It's a gesture of offering, right? So what this hand upwards is suggesting is the body language that this character is saying is, I'm getting the hell out of here, but here, take this as a peace offering.
Well, yeah, see, that's why I got you on here, because maybe I should take back my original statement. I think that if that is the intent, of what the artist wanted to do with this, I think that works perfectly fine.
You see what I'm saying?
But was that intentional is the question too.
Exactly. Right. And now the only thing, that's what I would, looking at this, that's what I think, if I didn't know what the subject was, but because you told me it is dark summoner or dark conjurer, right? Mm. Then I can see where that body language was off, right? I can see where that body language was misleading. Now, The other thing is, if I look at this here, okay, so just to give you a quick example, because I know I always tend to shoot my mouth off for so long that the time trails on here. If I have a hand like this, facing palm upwards, okay, like that, holding something, I'm offering. If I have my hand down, generally, it's kind of like somebody who's calming an unruly child. Calm yourself, right?
Yeah,
hand
down.
Facing down. It's time to say, shh. That's okay. That's okay. Calm down, right? It's like somebody's yelling at, hey, you got a problem? Because it's okay. Calm down. You're going to put your hands downwards, right?
Yeah.
If you're pointing your finger, okay, that, it's a way of saying, hey, stupid, there. Oh, I really screwed up. There's no thumb on this poor guy here. Hey, stupid, over there. Okay, pointing, it's insulting, right? Now, what does a conjurer's hand do? A conjurer is trying to it's like almost like gathering energy. You know, like I know, like my ex-girlfriend was actually witch, and she showed me this ritual that she did with her hands for gathering energy to release negative energy, right? It's kind of fun. And she's showing how you ball your energy up in your hands and then you release it into nature, right? And it was cool because it's kind of visualizing invisible energy, so to speak, right? A conjurer is somebody who gathers and then releases, right? So there should be a feeling of a conjurer is somebody who's going to gather the energy or show in the body posture that he's that this character is lifting this creature out of the ground. And there's a great strength in her hands, in this character's hands, because he's lifting a beast that's 30 times his size. So I would imagine seeing hands that were more in a pose kind of like this, right? Cupped out like that.
Yeah. Acting it out, I did that same thing.
Right, with 3 fingers, because I have a cartooning background.
Yes.
Let's throw on that 4th finger there. Hands out like that, conjuring, lifting. Okay, hands out to show the end that it's actually an energy being emitted from the hand. And like you said, facing the beast, there's a connection. That the beast wouldn't be there if it wasn't for this character in the foreground. So we have to show that this character has actually conjured it. All right? See what I'm saying?
Yep.
The other thing here, just from a composition, like not from compositionally so much because the composition is good, but just in terms of the color tangent, you see the green we have here, and then the green here in the hand, like that. That tangent made it actually hard for me to see that was actually there. So I would say it's probably do something along the lines of this so we can actually see. You want that glow. Let's do a copy
You're on
brush.
your layer.
And just transform it down like that. And that way we can actually see, just from a compositional perspective.
Shorten the arm too a little bit? Do you think it's a little too long? I think it is.
Yeah, it might be a bit long too here. Let's try to see.
Maybe that's more of a technical thing.
The forearm, yeah. I think the forearm's a bit on the long side. Yeah. So like that. And then we have, like, as far as the glow is concerned, it wouldn't just be a little kind of rock in the hand type of thing. It would be a real, there's a real magic emanating. It's not just a little glow, because we want to see that it has to hold up against that beast in the background and show that connection and make sure not.
And then you'd see like that finger, the fingers coming out of like really bright in that gesture that you drew, kind of in there.
Yeah.
It looked really. I think they look cool, really bright and saturated in there.
Yeah.
And you could just see that the energy is getting really harnessed from.
You see the hand there.
Yeah,
right?
Or silhouette. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually.
And then you'd see the other fingers. Yeah, on the other. Yeah, that's. I mean, that it. We're both on the same page.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're dead on. There. See something like that, and of course, this character would be facing the monster, facing it as into beckon them, like come to me, right? The body language here is the opposite of come to me. The body language here is get the hell away from me. All right, and he doesn't want him to get away from me. He's the one who called him in the first place because he's the conjurer.
Yeah, and that's just reflecting back what I was interpreting kind of at the beginning there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm glad you just because in terms of other technical things, I'm glad you just darkened that leg area behind the character. That was like that needs to get toned down.
Yeah. There you go. So you see, just in terms of value and stuff like that. Now we also want this conjurer to stand out, so let's throw a little light on him, right? We want to add a higher range of contrast on this guy so we can actually see. Now I'm not changing the pose in this particular case because we were talking about changing the pose, but just Just to show you a quick example of if we throw some contrast in there.
Yeah, some really, and that'll be all green, or whatever from the energy. It'll really be lighting that character up from the front and making it pop.
Exactly.
Because it just wasn't a clear enough area of contrast on him, because there was some contrast going on throughout the entire image.
Yeah. So there we go. So we got that. Okay. So just in terms of value, now I can actually start seeing this character a little bit better. And I'm thinking, when we look at it from a distance, it blends in a little too much, so maybe I want to darken that area.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd lower the brightness overall a little bit on that character. It's just too.
This guy in the back, yeah.
Like, yeah, he's just like way too bright.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm in the day, but everything else is in the night.
Yeah, remove some whites basically, like just.
Yeah, and then you go over the top of him or something like that with like a real kind of dark, like you just dark mute it the heck out, and then you could put like the gentle, like what you're doing, and then you put like gentle highlights, just like on the last image, even on the top. Mm-hmm. And if you want to suggest some moonlight, or you could, that's just kind of bringing more of a cinematic aspect to it, but.
Yeah, like having a little light hitting across his shoulder, across his face to pull your attention to is. Remember, you're always going to put the highest range of contrast where you want your audience to look, right? So maybe have a shaft of light that was shooting across like this, and I can take this down even further, like that. And that way here, you get a nice dynamic range of contrast there, and we're throwing in a shot of light. Maybe it hits off his arm, maybe not. I want to keep it.
Yeah, just like on, it kind of dabble in terms of like almost room lighting, parts of his edges from that side. And it'd be nice. You could do a dynamic cast shadow like underneath his head,
Mm-hmm. Right, now you're making me have fun here.
Yeah, and that's just what it's all about, is how to make like sell the moment of this story,
Yeah.
And that could just be like, you just need to sit down once in a while and look at your image and evaluate it and like, all right, what is this missing? What is it? I mean, how would just a lot of you just ask yourself a lot of questions basically in your mind and try to figure it out.
Yeah. So there you go. Okay, so we got this. And now you want to see the before and after, so we can group this up and show before. And here I'll show you the before with. In value and in black, in color and in black and white. So before and after. Okay? Big difference there, right? Because we can actually see each individual character, right? We can see the character. I noticed you have gravestones here. My first impression was actually they were in a movie theater. I thought these were movie theater seats. So you need something in terms of just a narrative to say that this is gravestones.
And you could brighten up, I guess, the mid add a little bit more atmosphere. And I mean, just it got a little dark, but I mean that's fine. Yeah, those should read as graves. I mean, because it looks like there's wheels or boards. Like there's like another element in there of like suggesting stuff, and I love that because it's like really subtle.
Over here, you mean?
Yeah, like all those. I don't know what they are, but it's adding. It's not taking anything away from the image, but it's kind of it's definitely spiking my curiosity.
You know what it is? It looks like a crypt.
Yeah.
It looks like a crypt to me, which it might very well be, because if we're in a cemetery setting, then this would be a crypt. Now, can I tell it's a crypt? Can you tell it's a crypt? I don't know.
I mean, I guess but it took us this long of looking at it to really kind of think about that.
Yeah.
Which I guess might be the issue.
Oops! I just threw in a little door in there. Now it feels more like a crypt, right?
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a crypt design up here along the top. If I'm thinking like Lafayette Cemetery or something like that, they're beautiful crypts. Throw in a little bit of a kind of a
some like maybe like hints of Gothic ornamentation.
Yeah, here, let's take some of this out so we're not losing a lot of that interesting information. Like that. Show a little bit of depth around here.
Yeah, and you could even have like a spotlight. Grab an airbrush and just you could dapple like just some light, kind of like it's coming through a hole up top, or whatever it is. I mean, it's cool. I think this image has all the right ingredients to be really successful.
Absolutely.
But it's just kind of lacking some of that professional finesse, or something that it just would take some time to get it there.
It's like you said, it's a successful piece of artwork, But like we talk about this all the time between you and I. When it comes to a lot of people believe that when you're producing a piece of artwork, a lot of people think when you're looking at it from the outside, the artist just went, "Oh, this is how it's done. One shot, bang, it's done." And a successful piece of artwork is one that starts strong like this, and then you manipulate it like a marionette. Right?
Yeah.
You move it around, raise.
Because that's actually something. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going.
Not at all. No.
Well, I was saying I just noticed it because it's more in my face. The green bits underneath the chest would be like a really kind of great way to like add that. Everything when you create mood through your use of light and stuff, and if it was underlit with that green energy from wherever it's emerging from,
yeah,
totally sell this.
Absolutely.
It's just too, as it is now, like as you were saying, it was just too general lit. Like it was just like maybe like a spotlight is right in front of this thing that we can't see.
Well, that color, that green, is the selling point of the painting in terms of color. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not only the selling point, it's the narrative point. So if you have it overall too much, you're stretching that impact too far. You're watering out. You're watering down that impact by keeping it very localized and specific and connected between the two, just like the red on the girl, right? That we just saw?
Yep.
By making that color, that narrative color clear and connected between those two creatures, you're making that connection between the two of them, and you're also telling the audience what kind of connection it is, right? So, yeah, absolutely. There you go. Let's do this. There we go. There you go. So really nice work. Very nice work.
Yeah, let's jump to the third one.
All right.
Because I know you're just about as passionate as I am about this, and we could probably spend a half hour per image if we did.
I know. Please, if I go on, just shut me up. I'm used to having 3 hours per class, so fitting it into an hour is hard for me. I always struggle with that.
I'll take a break though, and we'll save it out after the fourth one, just so I can have 2 takes of the video. Because one time I tried to render them out or save it, and it crashed, and I lost everything.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll do that slight intermission after the fourth one.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
at least we don't lose everything.
Yeah, and it'll give us a chance to refresh our coffee and all that stuff.
Yes.
All right. So back to recording.
We'll do hues.
Hues. There we go. Very cool. All right.
Yeah. This one's very good.
This is hue.
Yeah.
You know what? You know how you say hue in French?
Oh.
Ig. Basically, hue in French is hug. Isn't that cute?
That is.
I love that. Ig. All right. So hues were beautifully done. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of thought put into this.
Yeah.
In terms of the composition, the lighting, and it really reflects when you could tell he took his time to. He probably did. I'm just guessing, but it looks like he did a couple thumbnails, planned out everything in terms of his values and everything, because it pops, it reads, and this is something that you would see like on a trading card game or a tabletop one. It's pretty much at that level. It's really good, well crafted.
It's and an ambitious piece of artwork as well, because anatomy is in itself, it's tough.
A monster.
Especially when you're doing head to toe, the whole body. Like very often people just do waist up because it's a lot less challenging to do waist up. But when you're trying to connect upper body and lower body and then throw a third point of perspective in there. Whew.
And it's underlit.
Which
is unless something you're shooting yourself is really hard to find a reference for online.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. It's kind of a way of saying, Tyler, Adam, go home. I don't need your help. It's okay. I've got this.
Yeah, I got this.
Yeah, no, it's a really beautiful piece of artwork. Well, listen, I don't know about you, but the first thing, if we think about the kind of theme of how lighting has been used through the last 3 pieces, that could actually apply to this piece as well. The kind of connecting the conjuring light to the creature that's being conjured.
Yes.
Right? And the first thing, no doubt about it, the first thing that pops out at you with this piece is the fact, from a physical perspective, it's this girl, right? It's the fact that she's the center point of it, but is it immediately evident that she is in fact a conjurer? Is she about to shoot is she about to do a Shoryuken fireball? Or is she conjuring something, right? Now, in terms of body language, her hands are in a better position. They're more believable position in terms of body language, in terms of conjuring, because she's lifting something out of
Yeah,
the ground.
it looks like she's definitely in control of the situation.
Yeah, and that lift also reflects in these kind of like this bloody kind of skeletal creature that's winding out of the ground. She's pulling it out, and the splashes of blood are also shooting upwards. So we can feel that upward movement in the piece, right? But a little something that can be thrown in here to make that connection between her magic and this creature is through the use of that green, right? So the use of that green here. So we have faces here that you can't really tell unless you look close up. Like you do see it a little bit here, right?
Yeah.
She kind of hinted at it here, but just to take that light, and I apologize, you know.
Yeah, because he applied that on that right head, and it works phenomenally. Yeah, so just bring that into this one right here. I think will really strengthen that piece.
Absolutely, you know. And I know I'm, with all of you guys, I apologize that I'm painting all over your work here, but it's just and I'm doing a poor job at it on top of it, but it's just to kind of give you, just to help illustrate what I'm talking about and where, right?
Yeah.
You see, like we got a face here, and maybe you wanted to, like, if you wanted to make it look a little bit, you can catch some expression there, right? That's catching off the side. Now you don't want it to overpower the glow, so you can like take the saturation up, maybe take the value down slightly.
Oh, yeah, that's looking good.
Because that's against a red surface, that light is going to mix with the red a little bit, right? So it's going to start to create this reddish color, right? It's not going to be the same color as this because it's up against a surface. Something like that, maybe. And even tone it down if you need to. You want that this to be the main focal point. So you don't want anything to overpower that. And you have that. You've got another face here. May or may not have noticed. So
yeah, I like that. That's really well.
A little bit of light coming from that mouth to capture the shape of the face.
Oh, yeah.
Like that. Now you can actually start to see that there's a conjuring going on, and what's actually it's actually these human forms that are being pulled out, a little bit hitting off the bottom of the eye, maybe. So now you can actually start to see, and you see how that high value here in the foreground is helping to sell the depth of the piece too?
Yeah.
It's because it's pulling your eye to the foreground, right? So having a high value.
I think toning down a little bit of the brightness, behind her would help a lot too. Just what do you think? That's just like a little too much.
Well, it'll definitely help establish a silhouette. If we look at this here, we'll look at it in value.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's try that then.
Yeah, the silhouette is not as clear as... Well, it's not as strong as I think it could be, which would really increase the impact, I think, of the image.
Let's try another levels adjustment. I think you did it with that one here. So let's take it down, except for on her. So because I do the adjustment, and I come back and I paint out very poorly. I'm just going to take down some of that light. What that should serve to do, but leave in the rim light.
The rim light from the back, or from the hands.
And keep that glow in place. Don't keep that light hitting the character there. And I'm just going to keep that nicely lit silhouette going on here, except maybe behind her head. Yeah,
because her head's already dark, and I think having that little bit of light behind her head was making the head pop.
Yeah, so let's leave that there. I don't want to. I'm gonna take out certain important details, like I might accidentally paint over like some of the light or anything, but I don't want to take too long working on this.
So we want. Anyway, I personally would like to see this character here, the conjurer, like up in the front and center stage.
Yeah.
As she already almost is even lit.
Let's see.
But I'd even, I'd soften up almost the lighting on her entirely and add that green lighting kind of, coming from her hands that's illuminating her form. That could be really powerful.
Let's see.
And then maybe you have a secondary light source somewhere, if it works, but...
Now here at the bottom we've got dark, so the general rule is light against dark, dark against light. So because her feet are starting to blend into the blood is dark, so I'm going to leave a little bit of lightness there. So having the light, dark light helps keep that depth going on in the piece, right? And here with this light hitting this guy over here, I would probably boost this up a little bit more. Like that. And you were saying as well to have some of that green light hit her body. So let's see about that. So think of doing another levels adjustment, just taking that down a bit. Although it is cool, she does have a very nicely red silhouette there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's reading this is just, that was just something I would personally explore to see if it worked. I mean, it may not.
And, well, I definitely think it will. Here, it'll definitely work. We're starting to delve into perhaps a different approach to the painting, right?
Yeah.
It's still some food for thought, right? So let's give it a shot.
But yeah, you never know until you try. Maybe he already did explore this. He's like, you know what, it didn't work as well. Right. That's very possible.
But, I mean, that's like, yeah, and another thing I mentioned between Tyler and myself here is what we're offering you is suggestions, but this is not
a be-all, end-all.
Our art, right?
Yeah.
Your voice has to shine through here. So it's just kind of giving you something to look at. But you take this whichever way. You might look at this and go, you know, it's cool, but it's really not the direction I was planning on taking the painting. More respect to you for feeling that way. But if there's something out of this you can get out of it, then awesome.
Yeah, I feel good.
You know, have some like your face. And then to tint that, to give that a green, imagine giving that a green tint. Just in terms of value, how are we looking here? Not too shabby. Make that. Oh, look at that glow now. Make it really feel.
Yeah, like I just want to feel that glow, like on her skin. You know, just I think the lighting situation is a perfect opportunity for that. And then you could add a secondary light source somewhere, like maybe from behind, or whatever, catching some of the edges. I mean, but it's really strong image.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's beautifully done. And there's big hugs to you for this beautiful piece of artwork. I hope I'm not pissing you off by saying that. People make fun of my name all the time, so it's not. I'm actually not making fun of your name, because my name. Here's a quick story for you. My grade 1 teacher in elementary school, who should have been fired a long time ago, she started calling me. She started the trend in my elementary school calling me dumb. She did it. My teacher started that. Imagine. Wonderful woman. God love her. That's tenure for you.
Yeah.
So I wish my name was Hug. You know, it'd probably get me hugs.
Hey, little hugs can go a long way.
There you go. So just to give a quick value, look at it. We'll do the same thing with.
I don't know. I think it's looking good.
Me too, isn't it? Now, this is a successful piece of artwork in and of itself. Right there. There's not a lot to say to it. But if you're thinking in terms of a visual narrative standpoint, like this is probably a little too much dark here. We are losing the silhouette.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that adding that dark in the back adds depth to the character. However, we can see what Hugh did before is we needed this silhouette of this beast to show up, right?
We didn't want to lose that. That's
probably why I decided to do that there. But you can see it's two different ways of going about it. Now, if we were to darken the area, we need this light from The Conjuring to catch along the silhouettes and help that be read. Otherwise, we'll totally lose it.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that so we don't spend all day on it. But I mean, yeah, like, you know, this successful image. We were just exploring other ideas, so.
Hats off to you, Hugh. Beautiful, beautiful work.
Yeah, I have no real beefs with it.
Nope, me neither.
Awesome.
In fact, next time, Hugh, I'm going to put my piece of crap painting up. I don't want you to tear it to pieces. How's that sound? There we go.
Yeah, we're going to do that now that I think of it. We're going to do just a show, and we're going to put each other's artwork up on the chopping block, and we're just going to go to town on them.
You know what? I think that would be awesome. I'd love to be. Just...
I don't want. Whenever we do these, I don't want to come off like we're up on some high horse or anything like that. Like we make as many more mistakes than anybody else too. So
that's just you, Tyler. I never make mistakes. Everything I do is completely on purpose, even when it's completely wrong. That is my intention.
Well, that's what I should have said.
Yeah. All right. So number 4.
Yeah, we'll look at Marcus, and then you and I will take a quick break.
Yeah. Here we go.
Marcus. There's a fun note. I think he's only like 18 or 19.
Don't tell me that.
I am. I spoke to him before. You're a really talented guy.
You tell me, like, I look at this artwork and I go, oh, wow, maybe one day I'll paint this well, you know? Then you say, yeah, he's 12.
That's gonna come up. That exact line is gonna come up one of these days. This is bound to happen.
And when it does, I'm going to take my $95 stylus and snap it in half, throw it on the floor, and walk out the front door in the minus 15-degree weather, completely naked,
Ugh.
and just stand there and wait to get hit by a train. All right. So here we go.
I'm gonna. I love the color design and that creature in that tube.
Yeah,
Like that looks awesome.
it's phenomenal. I absolutely love it. Let me see. Let me have a closer look and see if we can actually make out some.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. That is lit. That
So
like he is
handsome.
lit like that creature I wanted from like the second one from Marta's. It's like that's how you light it. Like, but he in her case it would be the green, but same effect. He did it. He nailed it.
Yeah, really beautiful. I'm actually looking closely to see if I can see some kind of an actual. I see hands. I think these are actual hands here.
Yeah. And I think that's his thing too. I think that's his calling. Like I've seen him post a lot. He is really good at drawing like these weird and like crazy types of creatures like that.
Like alien creatures, really.
Yeah, like he's really good at it.
Nice. All right. So we got now. The subject is Dark Conjurer, right?
Yep.
So I'm thinking. I'm asking myself the question. Like, if I let's put this in a professional context, right?
Yep.
You're a director.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an artist. I'm what's his name again? Marcus?
Yeah.
I'm Marcus, okay, and right now in public in front of everybody, I'm going to completely plagiarize your work, Marcus. Tyler, this is my work. I did this all myself.
Hey, awesome job.
Okay, and you, the director, looks at this and says, okay, well, I just commissioned you, Marcus, to work on this piece of artwork, and the subject, I hired you to do a painting called Dark Conjurer, right?
Yep.
What's the first thing that you think? Is it, do I see Dark Conjurer? I see a beautiful piece of artwork.
Yeah.
But where's the conjuring? Right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I know that's part of the difficulty of it with doing any kind of brief is nailing the concept or theme.
That's hard as hell.
And I think this is the first one we've looked at that has a sci-fi take, and I think that's perfectly applicable to this. But it's like I think it would have nailed the contest description better if we saw one of these characters actually capture it, in the act of summoning this beast. I mean, it looks like they're just kind of transporting a monster.
They're observers. They're people.
Yeah, like in the old King Kong, like in the old King Kong movie, where they captured him off of Skull Island, they took him to New York, and they put him on a stage. Mm-hmm. That's the vibe I'm getting from this.
This could, with one tiny little touch here and there, could completely transform the narrative to Conjurer. Let's say if that were the case, because as a director, if I was looking at a piece of artwork like this, I'd look at it and I'd say, I don't want the artist to start anything over. I think I really love this painting, and I want this in my film, right? I think it's a beautiful piece of artwork. But the story is, the movie is about a conjurer. So we have to, when you're pitching this, if the director or the executive team or whoever's pitching this to the studio or pitching this to the company to get funding for this film, okay? If this were a piece of concept artwork, they're looking at this thing. This film's called The Conjurer, right? And this is a concept piece for the main beast, right? The people that they're showing, that they're pitching this to, are going to say, okay, but it's called The Conjurer. Who's conjuring it? Where's the story here? You don't want to. The director's not going to want to say, oh, well, you don't see that in this scene, but it's actually that guy over on the left. And you don't want to. You want it to. Artwork should explain itself. It's like John Howe said. He in one of his
it should
presentations. He says artwork. An artist should be issued a restraining order preventing them from being able to speak about their own work. The artwork should speak for itself, right? And in this particular case, I've never met you, Marcus. All I know is that the subject is about Dark Conjurer, right? And when I see the word Dark Conjurer written at the bottom, this is the title for this piece of artwork. That name should be reflected in the artwork that I'm looking at somehow. So how could we make this a conjurer piece rather than people going out? Because if I look at this, I would look at this and I would probably name it something like Freak Show, right? Everybody's going, oh, check out the ugly beast we captured, right? And there's all the people in the city are all looking up and going, oh, cool, people pointing. I would expect people to point it and going, "Look at that!" Right?
You know what idea I had on that note is that it could be like a double take or kind of like an M Night Shyamalan thing on the image where the creature could be the conjurer, and he is working all these characters. Like if we put like an orange glow, if we saw their eyes, but if their eyes were all kind of or their heads were kind of glowing orange, like in a smoke type of thing, but he was summoning all these people to him.
Yeah. Oh, I just heard a lot of feedback. I just heard a big breathy, yeah. Speakers. I can imagine we had something like that. Yeah. That's actually
just like real subtle
narratives. Like you always do the opposite of what people expect you to do. You know, if you had kind of like this, a kind of smoke coming out of the eyes and out of the mouth type of thing, kind of, and it's sucking up their souls type. It's conjuring them. Like they captured it, but it's kind of like in the movie, you know, like Independence Day.
Yeah.
Where they capture the alien, and the alien ends up mind controlling the guy. You know, kill me. That type of thing.
Like adding. I know this was like basically like a tangent off of what you were going at. And I interrupted you. I'm sorry, but
no.
But you see how this adds a whole layer of narrative to it, and it brings it back to the original contest description.
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not gonna go axe the dude if he doesn't do this on his image or anything. But it's like on a personal level, this says a lot more to me.
It does, and if you think about it from a professional standpoint, you know, you gotta put yourself in the context. You guys who've gone out of your way and painted this gorgeous artwork aren't just doing it. Some of you might be hobbyists, and if my opinion, if any of you guys are approaching this as a hobbyist, then you're a pretty hardcore hobbyist, in my opinion. You know?
Yeah.
But if you want to work professionally, one of the big challenges that every one of us face, and I can speak for everybody. I'm not only speaking for myself, I know I'm speaking for everybody. And that is, it's easy to do your own thing. But as soon as somebody says, can you do this for me? You can hit a bit of a roadblock because you're forcing yourself out of your own headspace and trying to visualize what somebody else is telling you, right? And regardless of how beautiful and successful your artwork is, if you're not selling the goods that you're being asked to sell, it's not going to succeed as a piece of artwork. Because the bottom line is you are producing artwork for this project with these characters and this story, right?
Yep.
So if we can't clearly read that in the artwork, then there's something missing and something needs to be fixed or changed, right? So, see what I'm saying here? So here, if we look at this, this is the beast actually doing the conjuring, and if we wanted to reverse that, we'd have maybe you know, if it was sci-fi, maybe these.
Yeah, what was your original take on because I know you were thinking, so you had something brewing in your head.
Well, you actually kind of prefer your idea, because I was thinking maybe of having something like these chords are actually, you know, using the color cue as we've been doing with the other ones, you know, that these chords or something like that are these kind of glowing beams that are making this creature come to life type of thing. And it's got a bit more of a sci-fi type of theme to it. You know, so we had something like this, and then we had a glow on top of it, you know, to show that they're actually very active. These kind of like, it's not being conjured through magic, it's being conjured through some channeling, through some
science.
A chemical conjuring, right?
Yeah.
Play around with this to get some kind of a blasting glow, something like that, you know, like.
Yeah, they'll be glowing.
And that's showing the physical connection between the beast and these characters, and you know, like maybe even like how is it being like these beams? What do they represent, right? So if we had for instance, if we had something like that beam, maybe those beams are actually sucking the life essence out of these creatures. So we have these kind of like tendrils that wrap around like that onto these characters, so we can see that those beams are actually exsanguinating something out of these characters, right?
Again, either way, yeah, it's making me think a lot more about the image, and it's generating interest.
Yeah, it's just to create that connection, so we can actually see that one of these parties is responsible for what's happening to the other. Is the beast conjuring them? Are they conjuring the beast? But the word conjuring has to play into the story, because that's the criteria for this piece of artwork.
Yeah, and that also speaks to the nature of illustration compared to like a piece of concept art. It's got a very specific. Well, I mean, they both have specific purposes and intents, but the intent of an illustration and a piece of concept art itself is very different.
Absolutely.
Like,
Oh, yeah,
generally,
absolutely.
pieces of concept art don't have to tell any type of narrative or story. They're there for, production to build a model off of and to, send it down the pipeline. Or illustrations, generally you're either, they're most of the time they're telling a story or trying to sell something.
Right.
Even if it's the
Exactly.
idea of anything, it's selling something.
It's all about, you're the reason they hire you as an artist is because you're going to produce artwork that's going to help sell their idea, that's going to make them lots of money. The bottom
Yeah.
line is, when it comes to any professional artwork, call it cold or heartless or whatever it is, because we are, as artists, are more emotional beings. We're not generally guided by money. But the bottom line is, a job is about generating money for somebody, either yourself or somebody else, right? Or for a studio, and you're making money, making them money, and it's all about money, 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 money.
It's
Okay?
it's a pyramid scheme.
It is. Yeah, you said it. You defined it for me. I've been beating around it, but you got to the point. Yeah. I know. Well,
That's like the guy who designed the Nike logo. I think got like $30 or something for it back in the
God.
day, right? I think it's the most recognizable logo in the world.
The most recognizable, story of getting ripped off I've ever heard in my life. Oh God, that's a sad story. Poor guy.
Poor guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna pause.
All right, I'm all good.
All right, so we're gonna check out Marta's second entry.
Awesome. All right. Here. Okay. So the second piece of artwork. Okay, so let me have a look at this. There's something really cool about this. And that's the fact that this is a shrimp beast. Where the tip of his tail is the same size as a boat. I think it's an absolutely phenomenal use of
I think you dwarf Godzilla. Like, look at the size of the buildings down there.
That's freaking cool. I love the fact that Marta chose a shrimp.
With volcanoes.
That's the kind of stuff that gets my attention.
With volcanoes on its back.
With volcanoes on its back. That is freaking awesome. But you know what? But it's actually, I'm looking at it and I'm not looking at it going, oh, that's so silly, a shrimp. I'm actually looking at this and going, I actually believe what I'm looking at, which is, you've suspended disbelief. So hats off to you for making a Goliath shrimp destroying a village. I think that's absolutely brilliant.
And again, I had this thought similar to the last piece, and I don't know if it's just a time commitment thing or maybe you're just not there. But I think this, I would consider something like that just in terms of presentation level, something more along the lines of like a color sketch or a value sketch. Like, this is like a really cool idea, but like, bring out every artistic tool you have or you're developing and you like really sell it, like sell this scale. Like, have the top of it kind of hidden in clouds, or like, there's different things you can do to really sell the scale of this.
Absolutely.
I think it's not really a thing right now, but if you switch the perspective of it, so it's almost like, it's switching the angle, so we're like just looking up at it a bit more would help too, because if it's like a megalith thing, like a guy like whatever, the giant beast, like having an upward shot at it, even if it's slight, helps kind of sell that concept of it.
Absolutely. And look here, if you compare the two, okay, let's do the grayscale thing again. So here, let's do, here, this is in grayscale, and this one's going to be in grayscale too, okay? What's cool about the difference between these two pieces is that one is predominantly dark value, lower value, and one's predominantly high value.
Yeah, low key and high key.
Exactly. One's a low key and one's a high key. Thank you. I didn't even, you know what, this is the first time I've ever used that term.
You'll see it at the end of the latest Brush Sauce episode that you were just watching earlier.
Yes.
I talk about it.
Awesome. Well, because I'm actually, I never actually use that term. I'm always coming up with fancy euphemisms to blot out the fact that I don't know the actual technical term for it. So yeah, the high key versus low key. Now, in both cases, although one is high key and one is low key, that doesn't mean you shouldn't see a full range of value throughout. It's just that one's going to have more emphasis on the darks, one's going to have more emphasis on the lights. Now, if we look at here in this piece, we have a fuller range
Yeah.
of value in this particular piece, right? Because we're hugging very close to white and we're hugging very close to black. But in this particular case, we're hugging closer to the higher value ranges, but you want there to still be a point of comparison so we get that full range. And once you get that full range, you create a lot of dynamic.
High key
a lot of
with
dynamism.
dark accents.
Exactly. So you want this to be a predominantly high key image, but here you're going to go, for instance, just add a curves or something like that. I'm going to bring down the value somewhere. Okay. And now I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to throw in, let's say the shadow. You want that shadow or something like that to really pop. Okay. Now, just by adding that, and maybe here we want to show some of these boats because they're important. They're a scale comparison element. That's really the only thing that our human eye can relate to actually gauge the scale. Okay. And just by having that, we're already starting to create a full dynamic range. And if you look at it before and after, you can see how this one visually feels more solidified and more, it jumps out a little bit more at you, right? And you didn't have to kill what you did. You have a high key image, but you have that value range just to say, hey, it's there. So you can immediately start to gauge overall what belongs where in terms of the value spectrum. It's not just an image that's lacking value, right? So there you go. There you go. Something like this. Now, in terms of narrative, okay, what did you mention before to throw in, like, let's say some kind of an element to help push it, help sell that depth. So you want to sell that it's above the clouds type of thing, right? So you grab a little cloud brush or something like that.
Yeah, you can just dapple little clouds in because it'd definitely be hitting some up there.
That maybe bring the value up a little bit.
But like we were just talking about with the previous piece, how does this relate back to the brief of Conjuring?
Yeah. Yes. Very good.
I mean, there's millions of good ideas for the sake of being a good idea, right? But how can we think to tie this back into the concept of the.
Well, when Tyler told you that this was the subject, he was in essence kind of acting like your director or your client and saying, this is what we want, right? This is our project. Can you produce something like that? I want you to help me sell my product because I'm not when you're working for a client, generally the thing you're going to hear from a client is, I have this great idea. I just need an artist to help visualize it for me because I don't have the.
That's what 9 out of 10 of them say.
They're telling you what your job is. They're telling you why you're being hired. You're being hired because you can help take their idea and make it come to life. You have the gift to make things come to life with your imagination, right? So you have to do that. Now, when it's your own thing, it's your own thing. But if Tyler says it's about a dark conjurer, or if you want to think loosely, a conjuring of some kind, we have to see that in the piece, right? This isn't a dark conjuring. This is a huge beast attacking a city. But where did he come from, right? We have to see how he got conjured, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry, my wife is just texting me there. I apologize.
It happens.
So how could we'd have to use our imagination here. Because we have such a unique piece of artwork in terms of story.
Yeah.
I think it would be a challenge for us to think of how we could actually make this a conjuring. How do you think we would?
My first instinct is to have somebody interacting with this, like up close in the foreground on like an airplane, if that's even possible to show all of that. Like, I don't know. He's kind of the shrimp's looking sad. Like, why did I just do this? Like a puppy that just did something bad.
I went pee on New York.
Yeah, it's like I just wrecked LA is like the look.
Sorry, Daddy.
And I'm sorry about it. So if there's a way to bring that look on him to like it's already interacting with the viewer, but if there's a way to draw that to like maybe some other type of character in the foreground or I don't know.
Maybe that would solve it. Yeah, because I'm sitting here kind of going, saying, how can maybe a plane, or if it's a conjurer.
Because, I mean, if it's up close and we'd have to be able to make out even a gesture of a character, yeah, it'd have to be...
like a cliff or something.
Something really up close.
And we have like a conjurer up here who's who's conjuring this big beast, flowing cape or whatever. Because conjurers always have capes, right?
And because capes are always better when they're flowing.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise. And he's got a Gumby-shaped head here.
But that adds to his character.
Yeah. So you have this creature, this character up in the foreground, maybe like that, conjuring it. You see, because I'm leaning it towards him, we can see that he's
or since I think having it up there would make it too top heavy. If you had like that cliff extending from the ground, so yeah. Like, but then if we even made him smaller, you could have like a little group of a little cult summoning him or something. I don't know. There's options. It's just like in terms of bringing it to the contest. It's just you just got to think about it, right?
Yeah, you actually just kind of help loosen up the whole story behind this, kind of like how just by adding that element of something in the foreground, now it's kind of giving us some breathing space to create, right?
Yes.
We have another conjurer over here.
Yeah, his little friend, and then his assistant, and the new recruit.
There you go.
And I mean, somebody could take the time if they were going to put detail into these characters to like add narrative to each one of them and give them specific role. I mean, but that's just like, all right, that's here or there. You can just push things all day if you sit down and put the time into it. So
yeah, but you can just see how just by adding this element, I'm creating a tangent with his leg, but here it's flipping horizontal. Because I'm so anal retentive, I have to fix this now. Transform, flip horizontal, and move this bad boy right here. There, that fits better in the composition. Okay, so now we're actually starting to see that this beast came from somewhere. He's not just this naughty puppy, big ass shrimp who destroyed a city. Now he's actually, he's a manifestation of somebody's evil magic, right? Because it's a conjuring, and that's the word conjuring should conjure up thoughts, right? So. But I realize by moving this over here, I'm actually covering the boats, which is giving you that whole sense of depth.
Yeah, I mean, there's subtle things we could change all afternoon to make it really, really work. But yeah, the idea of it is there with what we're exploring. Anyway,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. And I'm thinking now that I have an element in the foreground that's darker, I might want to take that shadow down a bit because I want to maintain that sense of depth in the piece, right?
Yeah.
So the darker values are going to be here, and now I can take down the shadow again. I don't have to make this strong. And if I want to pull my eyes towards this boat over here, these boats that are in the water, I might want to throw it.
Dodge layer.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, and just have a little bit of light hitting off of the water.
See the shrimp is technically so big. He could. Depending on the light, he could cast like if anyone ever seen that image of the new game Destiny, where they have the Traveler Sphere over that, like the thing's cast shadow it'd be cast for miles.
Yeah,
he could put a whole city in a shadow with his size.
He could, if it's a clear day.
Yeah,
but let me see. Let's go back here. I actually don't have I'll have to open up the original color version. But as we can see here in terms of values, okay? In terms of value, it feels overcast, right?
Yeah,
it's here in the background with things. So if it's overcast, it's going to create a diffused lighting. So this is the kind of lighting you'd want if it was a cloudy day. But, like Tyler said, if you want to have this huge, massive shadow that completely shadows over it, you're going to have to change the climate. Right, you're going to have to clear up that sky so that you can get a nice sharp sun.
That wasn't even necessarily directly related to a suggestion. That was just me running my mouth with ideas that were just.
Oh, so I'm not the only one who runs my mouth off? That feels good.
Yeah, actually. Just don't let me talk, because then I don't stop.
Speaking of talking too much, and then I go on a 2-hour story about my childhood. Yeah.
All right, so anything else we could just add to this on a technical level before we move on then? I think the first piece was like stronger in terms of ideas and presentation level and all that jazz. I mean, but I think the second one here is a whole different beast in itself. It's a great idea and everything, but not enough time was spent on it.
Well, as you can see here, I think one common thing that we see throughout is what I feel that what Tyler and I have both been focusing on through the entire thing is narrative and how you can use story to help direct how you choose colors, values, composition. It kind of controls everything there, right? And that's kind of the common theme that's pulled through all of these. So visual storytelling is definitely, you can see the value of having a clear story in your work throughout everybody. It's throughout everybody's work.
And that's one of the first things I always say, because I get that question more commonly than most, is like, well, how do you know what colors to use? Well, it's like, well, that always kind of goes back to the, well, what are you trying to tell?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the colors are based off the mood, which will be kind of be derivative of the values you originally choose. So it comes from like this long line of decisions that you should have already made about your image in terms of what color choices you make. That's all kind of comes secondary, at least to me in my workflow, and in terms of how I break down the process of image making.
What you want is to have control over your work. And to have control over your work, you have to think about everything you put in your painting. Like any painting that you ever see, or you look at classical artists or contemporary artists, value, color, composition, contrast, texture, body language, everything should tell a story. Okay, it could be a deep story or a very superficial story, but the story has to be prevalent in every decision you make. That way you have control over it, right? If you're just doing color for the sake of color, then you have too many options, and that's what can be intimidating, right? That's what can be intimidating and throw you off in a direction that you might be less satisfied with. Right. So as soon as you start to take control of value, color, every single step of your painting, you can make conscious decisions about every decision you make, and that takes a lot of the stress of decision making away from you, because you can be very literal with your decisions that way. Right.
Yep.
All right. So let's see. Edlin.
Yeah, sorry if we butcher your name. I've already been called out before for doing that, but not our intention.
I'm generally good at that, but here. Yeah. I see Edlin, but I might be pronouncing it with the wrong tongue, right?
Yeah.
In any case, all right, Edlin. All right. Well, this is another very beautiful.
This has a very. You know what I like this? Both the colors and the composition give me a very kind of almost like retro comic book type of vibe to it, like comic book cover type of vibe.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why is because back in the day when the original comic books came out, they had a smaller color range they could print in, right?
Yep.
So they were limited to a certain number of colors in their palette. Now with digital printing and all of that stuff, we have millions of colors at our disposal. So it's a very different story. But yeah, no, in terms of the narrative is very clear. A lot of success as far as the narrative is concerned. It's very clear who he is and what he's doing and who plays what role in this piece.
Yeah, all of that is very clear and it's commendable too.
Yeah,
the job you did, well, the job you did it well.
Absolutely, it's really beautiful stuff. Now, okay, since this is a critique session, what would be your first thought on this, Tyler?
I would think just taking. And this is something I've recently done with a couple of my character designs I've recently posted. I thought they were done. I didn't show them. I didn't post them online anywhere. But I thought they were done. But I shelved them. I put them in a folder. But I opened them up recently, 6 months later, and I'm looking at them. And maybe I'll put a side by side comparison on this. I'll overlay it after. But 6 months did a lot for me. And what I realized, what I learned, and what I think could be applied here is just in terms of pushing your quality, presentation, and sense of detail, in terms of that. I mean, you don't have to change anything fundamentally about this, but it's like maybe your artistic mind will be further developed down the road, or maybe one of ours is just looking at this and or say, for example, I would just I would clean up a lot of it and just add maybe layers of detail and little lighting accents, just really push the texture on things. I would just just take your idea basically and just add little highlights on the scale of the dragon, or whatever. There's just always ways you can push things. I mean, simplicity is the key to brilliance in itself, but it's just you already have a nice painterly style here and stuff, but let's put this against some other contemporary illustrators doing the similar work and see how they're really kind of pushing things, to really take it at a competitive level.
Yeah. Well, the hard work's done, right?
Yeah, the hard work is done.
The frame, the composition, the pose, the perspective, the narrative, it's all there. Now it's just a question of spending that little bit more time on it to give it that spit polish, to give it that extra added layer of detail. Because, like Tyler and I talk about this, we chat on Skype all the time, and one of the things we talk about is, we very often discuss is, uh, there's several layers of engagement with your audience. There's the first, which is through value and contrast and composition, which makes people go, ooh, cool, look at that. If there's no more information for your audience rather than a first reaction, that's where you're going to lose them. So they're going to go, ooh, cool, and then they're going to move on. But what you want is to make them go, ooh, cool, and then go, oh, wow, and bring their face in closer. And and to do that, that's what Tyler's saying. Add that extra layer of detail. Keep them, grab them and keep them, right? What you've done is you've grabbed your audience, but you haven't kept them yet.
Just like little things, like the post on the right on the window, that's kind of off perspective from the chair, and it just kind of looks a bit crooked.
This one over here?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just to bring it in a little bit,
bring it in, clean it up. It's just polish, lots of polish, and that for from what I hear from a lot of artists, it's their least favorite part of it. But it's it's all part of the process, though. In terms of taking your art to like a next level, it's just like really he did a good job. Like there's like that blue light, that kind of cool sunlight coming in from the top that's hitting the top of the chair and part of that dragon. But it's like I'd also see that, kind of right here on the eye, or like on the almost rim lighting, like catching the tops of the edges of the scales of that head. And then most of his head in the mid range would be darker, and then he'd kind of have that orange. Looks like he'd have like an orange glow from underneath. So it'd be like a 2 light source character, and it would also like that, and it would add just little things like that. But I like for on that note, if you look at the bottom of the cup, the chalice thing. I mean it looks sloppy. Like if you have the time and you want to push things further, take the time and zoom. Up-res this and then really zoom in and make all your edges as perfect as you need them to look. Some soft, some really crisp and sharp, but have ellipses like that don't look quite as rough.
Yeah, take the time just to clean it up. Yeah, ellipses are tough for anybody, by the way. Ellipses are always tricky, so it just takes a little bit more time. And very often what people do just to save them a little bit.
And that's a critique I get from clients all the time is like, you just clean up these ellipses a little bit, because I try to, I leave them like that, like kind of like half done,
I can relate to this too, Tyler, because I look at your work and, you always have these awesome ellipses everywhere, and I'm like sitting going, I don't have the patience.
Yeah, for a lot of us, it's a pain in the neck. And on that note, I think the general shapes and the colors on the character are working, but it's like if you just break it down and look at kind of his boots or his shin pads or his gauntlets and stuff, it's all got a very kind of it's very generalized, and almost it's not saying much about him, or they're just kind of, to me, they're coming off a bit generic compared to the rest of the higher ideas in this. I mean, you don't have to have them in a ton of detail, because they're more or less secondary items in this. But I think little things like that could be paid more attention, and I don't think it would hurt the image at all.
And like you're saying, by adding that detail, adding little accents and details of different colors are actually helping to define shapes. Because if you look at it here, if we look at the arm, look at the arm, leg, this arm, foot, and this, it's all the same hue, isn't it? And it's all within a relatively neutral palette. So if I come in here, essentially this is what we see. Yeah. So we've lost a lot of the information there. It's hard to it can play with the depth of this piece, because it's basically one big solid piece of metal. And one of the tricks is you always look at your artwork from a distance, right? So what could you do, if you're thinking in terms of what Tyler just said, what could you do to help push this? So what if I had kind of like an accent off the top of this knee, and something off the top of the leg to help push the design that's maybe grabbing.
That is all. That is probably the weakest area in the entire painting. Is that whole knee and where the leg is. It's just very rough. And if you were submitting this to a trading card company, or something like that, or Wizards of the Coast, Fantasy Flight, they'd have you clean all that up, because it's just it's that part of the image is not at a presentation level.
Yeah.
And like you'd want to really consider what material those boots and the gauntlets are and things, and consider how the orange highlights, maybe some bounce light from that tail smoke energy is like hitting underglow, and you have a slight hint of that in its cool colors, which is fine I think in most cases. But if that light's really strong, you'd probably see a range of warm colors in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just like, just break out material references from Google, like several of them. Do a study if you want to really commit that to your head. Otherwise, and Adam and I were talking, we just kind of learn on the job. So if I was doing this, I'd figure out what material that is. I'd bring out 5 references for it, throw it up, and I just render it on the image. But like, a more careful or, maybe a different artist would just do studies of that material, put it away, the references, and then try to commit that to memory and work on the pace. So there's numerous ways of improving and getting better.
Absolutely. Now, I'm looking at this too, and remember where we were talking about how you have a very good base? You don't only have a very good base in terms of the pose, the character, the armor, the beast, the setting, but you also have a very good reference in terms of how you can play around with this image, with lighting, to help push the story and push the depth of the piece. Like, for instance, you have a really nice window back here that shoots in, window here and here that'll start shooting in some light, right? So here, let's just do a little experiment here. Let's get rid of everything that I've done here so far, okay? Right now, the light is coming from back here. So logically speaking, at most, it'll hit off the top of the tail, if this is a tail, or it's part of this kind of like kind of Chinese dragon type of thing going on. It might hit off the top of the head. It might hit off the top of the chair. It's not going to hit him.
He would be entirely in shadow, as the lighting is, the ambient lighting suggests right now.
He'll be in shadow unless we introduce a new light.
Which I think is almost necessary.
Right. So if I come in here, for instance, there's a few, if we forget about the technicalities for 2 seconds, I have the elements here, so I have enough stuff to play with, but I'm thinking, okay, narrative. What's the story? Well, he's a conjurer. But there's a little confusion here because when you actually analyze this long enough, you can actually start to realize, okay, he's a conjurer. He's sitting down very casually because he is such a powerful wizard or conjurer that he doesn't have to super summon and put himself in an action pose. He just kind of sticks his hand out and
he's established.
Dude's got style, man. You know what I'm saying?
He's beyond apprentice.
Now here we can see what your intention was. He's conjuring from his hand. It comes out and it comes out into this beast, right? So whatever came out of this is actually connected to this. But that connection is hard to make because we've lost it here, right? So what can we do to solve that problem? Well, for starters, I want to see that magic. And what's interfering with that is that we have this bright red next to a bright red. So it's actually, it's hard to even see. So what can we do there?
Show me the magic. It's like this old song from like the Sonic game I used to play.
Adam, don't sing. Don't sing. Please, just draw and don't sing.
When in doubt, break out in a song.
Yeah, right. That works better for
or move the narrative through song like they do in the Disney movies.
Yeah, no, if I do that, I'll get arrested. Let's just say it like that. So I'm pushing the fact that this red is coming from him by adding some dark behind it.
Yeah, right? that helps a lot.
So it's going to help push the depth a little bit. And I can see that this beast is actually starting to come in front. He's coming in front of this, so maybe have a little bit of a shadow here to show that he's coming in front of it. And push the high values to help push him forward. Okay, so now I can see the tail. Now this tail's got to continue. So I might want to have, if the light's coming from here, maybe have a little bit of light catching up there so we can kind of create that trail. The trail is leading my eye upwards, and then around here.
Again, vignetting, everything cool.
Yeah, like that.
And that can be really subtle, like that part of it, and it will work really powerfully.
We're just directing the eye with that red, right? The eye is creating that red is creating the entire composition. It's pulling our eye. So we're going to have to use that as a directional element to help continue our eye around here. And then as a visual balance, because this piece is so powerfully red, that we might want to throw in some cooler colors that we can steal from this window, and maybe throw in a bit of light hitting off the top of the tail to help establish the fact that this form is the same type of rounded form as this beast, right? Something like that. Although I might want to make that, bring it down a little bit.
Dude, looks like he's got snow. You just frosted him.
It's Frosty the Snow.
I know what you're trying to. I know what you're trying to show, though, and yeah, I agree.
Operative word being trying to show. Right, there you go. A little bit of light hitting off his head, so we're countering that. Yeah. We've got some of that light coming from back here, right? If we wanted to make it more of a bright light.
A saying that I always go by is, anything worthwhile takes time.
Exactly. When you do it rough, I'm not doing the painting justice because I'm doing this I'm being very sloppy. But we should at least feel like we're if we continue in this direction, we're going in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
A little light hitting off the top of it. Now I'm creating some depth from the back here. Now, one of the things that's interfering with this piece succeeding as a whole, okay, is what I find is two things. One is the control of the values, and the other is the control of the saturation of color. Okay, almost every color in this piece is hyper saturated. When you do that, what you actually do is you exhaust the eyes. So what you want to do is create a point of visual impact, accent with your main color, and everything else you want to tone down. And as you can see, one of the things killing the depth of this piece is the fact that if we look at this in black and white again, we can see that the brightest light is this window, and we lose this character. We look from a distance, this is the area where my eye is drawn up here. So we're going to have to control that a little bit more and pull the attention back to our conjurer. What you do here is you come here, and you go these levels, and I'm going to take away some of these lights. I'm going to pull the light down a bit. And I want to keep that attention around this conjurer. So I'm going to tone down the lights in the background because I don't want them to steal the show.
Yep.
Right.
So again, the bottom line or the lesson to take away from anything is the value structure is always the most important part.
Absolutely, that's the backbone of your.
And that by far took me the longest thing to grasp too. Like I used to bust out these digital paintings, way back in the day. Would show them to my teacher, and I was so proud of them. She's just like, oh, the values are so terrible. They're not working. You don't understand. I'm like, what? I thought, it's not easy.
But you don't see it until you learn how to see it, right? You have to
that is
know
true.
It exists first. So, unless somebody physically points it out to you, you're going to have your value. Somebody just comes up and says, "Your value structure's garbage. Fix it." You're like, well, what the hell does he mean? All you did was insult me, but you didn't actually explain to me what you meant. So everything has a very specific meaning.
I think you could put that whole side of the chair with him all in a shadow and just have little cool accents on the top of things, from the windows. But
I'm just boosting some of these. I'm making the value of him more powerful, and I'm toning down the values of things that are not in the main area of focus, right? So I'm going to want to have those highest ranges of contrast and light, shots of light, and all of that stuff. I want that to. Remember, the high values are going to pull out of the canvas, and the low values are going to recede into the canvas. I want anywhere where there's a clear overlap, I'm going to have a shot of light. So
you get darken all behind that, even too a bit.
The sneeze overlapping the other leg.
But again, that is already helping it a lot. I feel
it's helping with that depth a little bit. Now the other thing is saturation. Right now, our entire piece. Let me get rid of that.
That's why I originally said I got that comic book vibe from it because it's the saturation that hit me first before anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I take it all down a little bit, now it's because it's so saturated. Because I took down the value, it's making everything look like candy color. But we're gonna fix that in a sec.
Like chocolate soup.
I take everything down. Except for this object in the foreground. I'm going to take all of this down, and I'm going to keep this guy here up in the foreground. Now, because of the saturation, it's kind of gaudy, right? It's feeling kind of like blech. What happens here when we take the saturation down, we're going to use our saturation. We're going to use that saturation. If I take that saturation down, where I don't need it to be, where it's not a main focal area, I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to just add I want that orange perhaps to be our main. I want that orange to be our punch, right? Perhaps off the chalice, over here. And I want that orange, that fire to grab our attention.
Hand is good.
And that orange is going to pull our eye around the canvas to this guy over here, okay? Now what we've done is the red is now not overpowering. We're not sitting there going, oh God, I'm going to get a headache. You've toned everything down and you're just, the only saturation you have is that directional vignette that you have pulling your eye around, right? And there you go. By controlling our values and colors, now when we look at this in grayscale, let's go back and look at this in grayscale. We have a before and an after. And look at how that depth look at how those whites just pop out of the page now, right? And your eyes immediately gravitate towards this guy. Now, if I just added a tiny little touch of some higher value there.
That's why I'm always torn when I'm working on like big epic paintings and stuff. It's like I just want to paint them all in black and white first to make it like perfectly clear, readable, and like. But then it's like it's almost like twice the amount of work too if you go to color the whole thing well.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work to color like an image that you did that's the thing too. It's probably not the better idea not to paint every detail in black and white for if you're going to colorize it.
If you are, you have to understand how value translates to color, right?
Yeah. If
you go too dark or too light all over the place, then what you're going to end up with is an image that looks overly saturated, right? Whereas that's not necessarily what you want. You want those colors to translate. Values to translate into colors later on. So very often you do a value painting and you're like, oh, this looks awesome, right? And then as soon as you translate that into a color painting, you go, ooh, okay, forget the color. Or you just keep everything very low saturation, so it remains a more or less value painting. So you kind of have to. What I've learned is that you have to color and value require two different parts of your brain, and they require their own attention separately. Yeah. Before you can bridge that gap and put them together. Yeah. So you go. So I added some values to help him pop forward. So before.
I think it's much stronger. Hopefully the artist will agree and didn't think we just butchered his work up. But
oh, we're definitely butchering everything.
Yeah.
But don't worry, guys. You're going to get a chance to butcher us too. So, you got to play fair, right?
Yeah. All right. Let's jump to the next one.
What I got. Let's move this over here. Next one is by Antoine. All right. This is really cool because this is actually, you're going to see, like I was studying several pieces of artwork. One was, there was a couple by John Howe actually that utilize this type of composition, which I think is really cool. So yeah. So what's your take?
I kind of like that guy. He's summoning the back. He's just kind of you could tell he's like summoning and commanding him, but he's just like that big ugly puppy or that dog he's like still kind of training him, almost is like go wreck something, but he's just probably gonna mess it up and wreck something else, and I don't know, like
you tear half of the forest up, fetch.
Like I don't know if that was like the original vibe that Antoine set out to put with this, but like just because of how he's rendered and presented, that creature in the back with like the tiny little baby wings and like the kind of like that goofy type of that's maybe it's me, but I'm just like he kind of has this like goofy type of look to it.
Well, it's the big beast that has a bit of a childlike personality.
Yeah, like he has intentional or not that creature has a sense of personality.
Yeah. He's not just, generic beast number 447. There's actually some character to him, which I really like. It's really cool.
He's like, what's up? Like,
now, what I see going on in terms of composition here is kind of, I'm sure you know the technical term for it. If there is, I suck for names and terms. And that applies to every endeavor I've ever taken on. But I call it the yin-yang composition, which I love.
Okay. That works for me. I don't know of a correct term. But yeah, the composition is probably I would say the strongest aspect of this image.
Yeah.
He's got the diagonals, the things that are looping back, like the suggested lines, the leading lines. It's all there.
Yeah. And if you dissect this in half, you're going to see that, like, in essence, what we have here is a high value area, right? Here, I'm going to say high value area with a dark character. Like this, like that, and he's got his mace.
He understands having that structure will make him pop.
Exactly. We've got the low value guy here, and in the background, we have a higher value, a lower value, higher value? What am I doing here?
So yeah, if you want to practice composition and design, just break down your ideas into 3 to 4 different values and block them in solid values like this and see how it reads.
Yeah.
It's one way of doing it.
Now here we actually have light on dark and light on dark. But look what we're going to do here. I have my beast that's here like this, okay? In the background.
I want to know what the beast's name is.
This is what we currently have, okay? And it's a bit of a yin-yang type of composition going on here, okay? That's at least what in my very layman term, that's what I would call it here, okay? Where it's kind of like the image is broken up into 2, and each one of these characters occupy their own side of the image. Now that can be top and bottom, side to side, diagonally, depending on how you want to go about it, okay? But look what would happen. Check this out just as a way of looking at actually analyzing your own work. Imagine I took this value down, and this Godzilla guy over here, I brought him up, okay? So I've actually created a darker sky, dark on light, and light on dark, okay? See what's going on here? And in the process of doing that, I can actually control this and say, okay, I want them to be clear. I don't want to have this kind of overlap because that can confuse the composition. I'm going to create a little bit more clarity by placing him somewhere where he's not interfering, right? Now you can have this character kind of break that line so that we're not kind of hemisphering our image a little bit too literally. You can play with that concept. You can have him overlap like that so that the hand overlaps him for the sense of depth, okay? But you see how we're playing with that? Now I could easily take this composition and I could, for instance, just do top and bottom. Like if you look at my King's Harem painting, it's the same principle composition as this. Dark on the bottom with light characters, light on the top with a dark character. It's that simple, right? So you can see how we can kind of play with that element a little bit. The only thing I find, like one of the things that kind of really rubs me the wrong way with this composition is the cape and the tangent that cape creates.
That is it, yeah.
So what I would be tempted to do is to do this with the cape. Like that.
No, that's a flowing cape.
That's a flowing cape. So something like that. Now, and I would be tempted as well to take this entire character here and not have him, or take the character, or at least take this, not create such a clear tangent. With
I think it'd be stronger without some of those trees or having them in quite that strong of a line. Like, yeah.
Yeah, bring it out a little bit so that we're not, because the side of his body lines up perfectly with that. And that's creating a tangent, and what a tangent does essentially is it messes with our perception of depth, right? So I'd be more tempted to do something like this. And on that little hand that sticks out, because it's light on dark, I would add some light to this area here, like that. I'd want that hand to pop out a little bit more. Like this, so it's a bit more visible. Okay, so see what I'm saying here? Now, what if we took that idea? Okay, so get back to this critique section. So we're not going off for too long on a thing. What if I took the whole value of this down? Okay, so I'm going to create curves. I'm going to take the value of this all down. So now we have a clear foreground background.
Yeah, like it would look really cool. Like having that really, if everyone's seen those kind of skies that are over Mordor and like the Lord of the Rings, like just having a really kind of atmospheric sky and then having him kind of pop out or emerge from bits of that would be like really cool.
Yeah, okay, something like this going on where it's catching on.
Oh, when he's in shadow, he totally looks way more scary than.
Yeah, here I would take the same thing and just add. I apologize. I'm being so crude and ugly with my work here, but just. I don't want to.
You're illustrating a point, and that's what we're going for. So.
I mean, kind of grabbing off him. So we have a darker background, and I could even take this lower down if I wanted to. You can still make it daytime, by the way. Oh, no, it's too much. But here you could take it down, and let's say, but you might be telling yourself, yeah, but this is day. You're looking at this game, you just turn it into an evening scene. Not if I have a
But
predominantly
wait,
dark.
there's more.
But wait, there's more. I have a little. It's overcast, but there's a little bit of light
Yeah, you get
coming
the
up.
light on the horizon peeking out.
Now we've found our daytime again. It's just a dark, cloudy day, and we're helping to establish that sense of depth in the piece and our composition from a composition standpoint. And look like that. Okay, look at how that reads as a composition. It's very interesting, right?
Mm.
And it's a very simple rule. It's just dark on light, light on dark, and you can play with that dynamic any way you wish. So before and after. Okay. Now the other thing here is now if that's the direction you didn't want to go, another thing that's interesting about here is that the inside of this cape is very striking. It is a predominantly high key image, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a little strike of dark in there, which makes for a very evocative piece of artwork. You've got that, but in essence, when you look at this in value, we lose the dragon, which is essentially what this whole story is about. He's conjuring him, right? So if you want to keep this a low key, then just find a little spot, a little area where you can find a little bit of that darkness back there. And now you created a visual, created a dynamic range there that balances it, right? We find it in the foreground and the background. So that high range of contrast helps keep your eye flicking back and forth between these two guys, and you don't lose that dragon, right? And last thing I'm thinking of, I'm actually wondering if you could, because you're good at finding solutions in dark places. How would you be able to convey the fact that he's the one who actually conjured it? Since we're talking conjuring here,
Well, the secret is to have a belt of flashlights, but he's got the lantern, so he seriously and he's got the orange in his eye, which is correlating back to whatever. I mean, you could have this be beyond, more than a torch. Like, it could be, it could be the, like, what is it on the Avengers? They got all those, like, power cubes and stuff. I forget the name of it, what they call it. But, there's, like, these huge, like, universal, like, or, power sources, that could be, like, harvested and, like, be contained within this, like, staff or scepter, whatever he has there. And again, like, you kind of show with his eye being orange, that could be the tie-in.
Yeah, that's true.
And like, maybe have glowing glyphs going out from his eyes or different markings on his body.
Let me see if I can help push that. Let's see if I can help push that.
But in terms of what you said, that is the only way I can. I mean, well, him pointing and not like in an action pose helps that a lot too. So he's got a lot of things already working for him in terms of that. Yeah, that looks good. Just to help make that narrative piece, that thing stand out more, so we can sense that light a little bit better. Like, I think the character design and like that armor, the design of it is really well. And it's like maybe you could have even some of that reflect what that beast is. If you have like little dragon or little engravings, little markings on it, or design aesthetics that relate back to whatever that creature is. The creature almost, I mean, it's not like, I won't call it an afterthought because it was clearly an integral part of the design, but it looks like a lot more effort was put into the design of that character than like the monster. Yeah. Like, yeah, even like that again helps. Something like that. That's our answer for everything this contest. Connection between the two of them or something like that here. It's tricky because there's a lot of thought. The more thought that you put into your artwork, the harder it is for somebody to critique it, because a lot of those questions have been answered. So that's what I'm... but just some kind of a visual, it's called a visual cue. Very often, like we've discussed this in earlier brush sauce theaters, but creating a visual cue, if you're talking video games, for instance, or something like that, a visual cue to help lead the eye from one spot to the next. In an illustration, you're using a visual cue to help sell the narrative, right? Like this is the type of stuff something I could see on the inside, on the outside cover of a book, right? That's it's that type of quality illustration. So I'm trying to think to myself, okay, this guy's conjurer. So when people pick up the book and they read, The Dark Conjurer, and they look at it, without some kind of a visual cue, I'm not quite clear on the fact that this guy's actually conjured that dragon, right? He hasn't conjured him so much as he's giving him an order.
He's saying, you go there, right? So I want to feel that this guy, this dark guy, has actually created him through dark magic, right? So some kind of, it's up to you to decide how you want to play with it, but you think to yourself, what creative ways can I create a visual connection between these two guys, between him and him, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Gorgeous piece of artwork. Do we have any left here?
I think
one
more.
One more.
Woo-hoo!
All right.
And I can take my dog up before he bursts.
Yeah, I'm going to go pick up my little girl, too. All right. No, she's not standing out in the cold for any of you listening. I'm picking her up.
Child neglect.
No!
They're going to get you again. They already got you for playing that Warcraft and your kid needed help.
Oh, he's 1 year old. He knows how to dislodge a knife from the back of his head. He's old enough. Hey, I'm reading now. Leave me alone. No, of course it's not like that. Okay, so changing the subject very quickly here. Yeah. So, okay. What do you see? Conjurer?
I don't see Conjurer yet, but I'm looking. I'm trying to make a connection.
I see Possession. Right.
Yeah, this to me is more just coming off like one of the if it was cropped in like a book cover format, I could just see this being like on the cover of a movie or a book very well. But yeah, in terms of Conjuring connection, no, I'm not quite there with it.
Well, the hand on the head, body language means he's controlling her brain, right? And she's got that kind of zombie look on her face, or it might be a girl, or it might be a guy with long hair, depending on the era, right? But I see female because of the cheeks. But yeah, so I'm seeing, because the hand's on the head, I'm thinking that this person's been possessed, right? Like mind control type of thing. So what we need to see is a connection between...
Or scared shitless.
Or scared shitless.
Shit, you're gonna rip my hair.
Yeah, on my hair! Oh no, not my hair. Yeah, no, but... yeah, so I'm thinking, if this is a conjuring and the conjure went wrong,
Yeah.
like I summoned a demon and the demon ended up attacking me, I at least need to see the fact that this girl has done the conjuring. And if that's not the case,
But that's the element I'm missing for me.
Yeah, she's just a person. She's just a victim. That's all I see. She's a conjurer is the person in control. Now, if the demon's in control and the demon conjured her, then there has to be some kind of an indication that this girl, this human character, is a manifestation of something.
Yeah, because he can need like a human underling to do his like slave work or something like that,
Yeah, but that's more possession.
Like he's like an elevated vampire, and is like, yeah, that you're right. Again, that's more like possession.
Now, I'm actually thinking, because I'm looking at this as a real challenge on how we could turn this into a conjuring thing. How could you change this into a conjuring thing? I'm thinking just change her expression. Instead of being a victim, being one who's actually feeling pleasure by being grabbed on the head by this beast. This is her companion. It's like a child. Your child pulls your hair. You love them, and they my son kicks me in the ribs all the time, right? It might be one, but he's got a hell of a heel kick, right? But I don't go, ow, get off of me. What the hell's your problem? I laugh because it hurts, but we're playing, right? So to change her expression and make it one of like pleasure, like almost like an erotic pleasure, or like a meditative type of feeling in her face, I'm suggesting that this is a welcome connection between the two of them, right?
Mm.
And by showing perhaps her hands, showing that she's actually, holding some kind of a voodoo stick or doing some magical spell with her hands, I'm suggesting that she's brought him to life, right? She conjured him. He came out from behind the door and greeted her, and she goes, yes, my child, finally you're with me. So you see, we're creating a relationship between these two characters. You know what I mean? So let's try a little quick experiment. How's your dog doing? Is Indy's legs crossed right now?
I'm just glad, huh?
Is Indiana's legs crossed right now?
Yeah. So it's a good thing this is the last one.
Right. So I won't do too much of a painter right here. I think we're having a little too much fun with this.
I think hopefully we give some solid feedback on these.
There you go. And here, instead of her having a downward expression, a depressed expression, or a
Just get the warp tool. Yeah, just drag it on up like
have her smiling instead. Ah, my child, yes.
God, this takes a whole different life when you change that expression like that. Wow.
Remember, that's where we're going to look first, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of believability and rendering and texture and all that stuff, how your character feels, the expression is where people are going to look first. Remember, even newborn babies can recognize and respond to a human expression before they can even see properly. When a child's like a newborn and their eyes haven't even fully developed yet. Now, of course, I'm transforming a frown into a smile. So I'm like, ah! But hopefully I'm somewhat trying to capture that. It's kind of creepy what I got on here.
Just, yeah.
Okay, but by changing her expression, it's like, ah. Of course, at this point, it looks like maybe him grabbing off the top of her head is giving her pleasure. It's not necessarily saying that she conjured him. So I need to have a hand in there, showing that she's in the process of, she's in the process of conjuring something.
That's a strong hand.
Yeah. This is a Family Guy hand. I've been playing the Family Guy iPhone game just for fun,
Yeah.
Yes! That's the expression. Yes! The head rub. I love the head rub. Family Guy iPhone game, Family Guy Quest for Stuff, or some piece of shit game, if I do say myself. Absolute garbage. It's the worst piece of soliciting garbage I've ever known in my life. I love Family Guy, but God. It's like, you get to play for 5 minutes unless you spend $99 a minute on in-game content. Oh, yeah, it's terrible. You get 5 minutes of playtime a day.
Oh, better get it in.
She's conjuring something. Even though I've done a terrible job at it, what I'm doing here is showing you that she's the one. She's engaged in something. She's not a victim. She's not sitting there going, "Oh, I'm a zombie." Here, she's yay, hey. I like that. I'm sorry. Are we goofing off too much?
It's because it's Friday, and I think this is the first one we've done on a Friday.
Yeah.
We gotta wind down for the weekend.
The facial expression is this entire piece. Okay, don't lose sight of that. This facial expression is a very powerful, engaging expression. You just have to tell you it's from a body language and narrative perspective. That facial expression is telling the whole story, right? And how she feels, okay, how she's reacting to the situation is telling you how much control she has over the situation, right? So I would personally say, if I was a director, I would look at this and I would say, don't have that beast hold on to the top of her head. Have that beast creep out from behind the door and grab on, like he's emerging from the shadows.
You nailed this one. There's great ideas you had with this. Awesome job.
Yeah, like that.
My dog's going nuts, so let's pick one now.
Oh, okay, let's do that. All right.
But yeah, I think they were able to take something away from that, if for next time, anyways. You could pick two. Which two do you like the best?
Okay, I think the ones that are the most all-encompassing. Yeah, Indiana is basically saying time's up.
It's like I gotta go.
Okay, what all-encompassing narrative, composition
covers everything, all the basics.
I have two.
Mm-hmm.
Two that I really find stand out in terms of clarity and rendering, which are the one by Edlin and the one by Hugh. Those are my two.
All right, yeah, I was gonna pick Antoine's the one on the top left, and then Hugh's as well. So I think we'll agree let's say Hugh's the winner of this one.
Congratulations, Hugh! Beautiful, beautiful piece of art. Slow clap for Hugh.
Yeah, I don't have a sound bite, so we can play it with the audience clapping.
I guess a slow clap, definitely. Good job, man.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. And if you enjoyed this, thought it was helpful, don't forget to tell your friends. Everybody join in on the next contest we set up, and we'll keep doing these. We're enjoying it as well, and we wish everybody the best.
Yeah,
it'll probably be the last one before the holiday. Just wanted to throw that in. So happy holidays, everyone.
Holidays. Happy holidays, Indy. Go pee-pee.
He's gonna go.
Yeah, right now on the floor.
Probably. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a
All right,
great
thanks
day.
a lot.
Thank you again, Adam.